360 Sports Podcast.
Today, man, we got a special guest right here in the building, one of our very own. Took some time to be a part of the 360 Sports Podcast. And, man, it's important that we always salute and congratulate and always keep pushing the guys from our area. And this guy came through Gainesville, graduated from Gainesville High School, and actually you and Adrian played college basketball together. But before we get to the college basketball part, man, first tell everybody who don't know, Charles Hendrix, tell everybody what you're doing now, man. It's important everybody has an idea of what you're doing right now.
Gotcha. Well, right now, man, I'm currently the athletic director at Coconut Creek High School in Coconut Creek, Florida. Coconut Creek High School is one of 30 schools in the Broward County School District, which is one of the top 10 school districts in the United States of America. I've been at in this position as the AD for the past 10 years, and it's been a joy professionally to be able to sort of lead their resurgence when it comes to athletic success, and not just basketball, but in all sports. We got a good program to the point where we've been pretty successful over the past 10 years. So that's been my last stop here at Coconut Creek High School down in South Florida.
Good deal.
Yeah. Hey, Chuck, so tell us about your background about, Gainesville growing up and all that good stuff, coming up in Gainesville and, playing at Gainesville High School and going off to college in Maryland and South Carolina. Can you touch on some of that?
Absolutely, man. Gainesville, it's a dear place in my heart, and I wouldn't have survived these past 10 years without my growth and my experience in Gainesville. I was born and raised in Gainesville, Georgia, August 30th, 1980. I come from a history or a family of academics and athletic success. I like to say a real balanced lifestyle. Although my living situation, to touch on like where I actually grew up at, wouldn't be considered ideal, because I was like born and raised on 240 Atlanta Street. And if you know anything about Gainesville, Georgia, 240 Atlanta Street was one of a couple of the housing projects in Gainesville, Georgia. You had 240 Atlanta Street, you had Melrose Apartments, Harrison Square. So I was in that culture. Apartment M5 was what most of my time, and then we moved to N2. My family is the Kessler family on my mother's side. My father's side is the Hendrix family. I was raised by my mother, a single mother, on Atlanta Street in a village. I would say a village, not solely my mother, but my grandmother had a tremendous influence in my life, and my aunts, rest in peace, my auntie Gary, who made her transition today. But they were my rock, and they sort of guided me throughout my life, and up to this point, we're still heavily involved with each other. So I attended the Gainesville City School System. I went to Fair Street Elementary. I went to Gainesville Middle School. I went to Enoda, and I went to Gainesville High School. I was at Gainesville High School from 1994 to 1998. I played basketball under Jerry Davis, who also coached Mario, as well as a host of others. And Coach Amy was the top assistant at the time. So I played high school basketball. I did other sports as well, but basketball was my calling card. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship once I left Gainesville High School, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Cecil Community College in Northeast Maryland. It's a 2-year school. It's a national powerhouse. They won a national title in the 06. I was there from 98 to 01. I was actually on the first team to make it to the national tournament in Danville, Illinois. I was on that first team, had a great career, great team, high major guys I played with. I was fortunate enough to leave that situation even after some injuries. I actually broke my foot, and I don't know if I shared this with you, AP, but I actually played 1 full year plus maybe a few games at Cecil Community College, because So the process at the time for my coach, who was a legend, you stayed 3 years in JUCO. So I played my first year in '98. My second year I redshirted, and then I came back my last year in '01. I only played 2 or 3 games that year. I ended up breaking my foot, and I couldn't play anymore. And they looked at possibly trying to get me some more time, another redshirt year, but we opted not to. I had some different scholarship opportunities on the table, and that's where AP and we got to join forces again and attended Lander University in South Carolina, Division II, and in the Peach Belt Conference. Was excellent time. I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed the relationships. I'm gonna be totally transparent. I enjoy the relationships that I formed at Lander. I enjoy being with my high school brother, being with my native from Gainesville, being a guy that I like to consider family, and playing. But I learned a lot about myself at Lander, and I think that experience helped me in my professional life, and it helped me in my personal life. So I went through some trials and tribulations at Lander from a playing standpoint. Coming from Cecil Community College, where I had I would say, a more successful career when it comes to actually playing, and then moving to Atlanta University, where my playing experience wasn't the best, but it taught me that it was life after basketball, and I sort of needed to start developing my philosophy about life after basketball. And just the relationships. I forged a relationship there actually with our point guard, Ade Mason, who after he finished playing at Lander, he went on to Virginia State University and finished his collegiate career. And through that relationship, I got the opportunity to go to Virginia State after I finished my degree at Lander and get a grad assistant position at Virginia State University. So I was a graduate assistant basketball coach from '04 to '06 at Virginia State, thanks to my guy, Ade Mason. And from there, I got my first opportunity to be an athletic director at Evangel Christian School in Chester, Virginia. It's crazy. It's been a while now, so you got to bear with me. In Chester, Virginia, that was my first head coaching position. It was a private school, so I got to see how private schools work and had a successful run, won a lot of games, had some all-conference performers, had some kids go on to get college scholarships. I actually took a group of my kids back to my junior college where I played at, and they got a chance to play on that floor. So it was a really great experience, and they helped mold my coaching philosophy, which is a holistic approach. And I try to make sure the guys under my leadership, even in my position as athletic director, understand that if you really want to succeed and you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor, try to enjoy it all. So don't just like pigeonhole yourself in a one spot. Try to build relationships, try to embrace the journey, and try to embrace everything, relationships, the academic piece, the basketball piece. Because if you truly look at your journey from a holistic platform, I think you'll have some more success, and I think it'll be more rewarding. So I finished my playing career at Lander, grad assistant at Virginia State, and that was pretty much it from an academic and playing standpoint and basketball standpoint.
Hey, Chuck, you touched on something about Lander. I know you said at Cecil, you got an opportunity to play more. And what a lot of people don't know at Lander, like you would have played, you remember like our first game against Winthrop, you broke your foot. And like that just put you behind, and then you was trying to bounce back, and I think you tried to come back early, then I think you re-broke it or something happened. So like you never could like really get healthy that first year playing at Lander. So I felt like, our first game you started using that starting lineup. And so I think you would have played, bar no injuries, something like that. But I thought you had a great career at Lander. You graduated. Now you're successful being an AD, a teacher, a mentor. So, I mean, I think it worked all out for you, man.
Oh, absolutely. I don't have no regrets, man. Like I said, that Lander experience was the best when it came to relationships, and I truly enjoyed it. And that's wild because I never really share that piece of it anyway because I like to not make no excuses. But I did get dealt a bad hand when it came to injuries, and I suffered one at Cecil too. But you helped me get through that. I don't know if I ever told you that publicly. You helped me get through that, Still being there with you and knowing we sort of went together to sort of hold the city down and do what we had to do. I wasn't gonna shut it down. I entertained maybe going and doing some other things, but just my being from Gainesville and being from a city that has resilience and being from a neighborhood, 240 Atlanta Street, that didn't let you make excuses. You just had to go to work. So it helped me get through that situation. And I got some of the best relationships out of that. And I tell kids, even I mentor now, relationships are the greatest currency. So who are watching, that's kids, that's friendships, that's life. Relationships are the greatest currency. And I wouldn't have had the opportunity at Virginia State had I left Lander because of the playing situation, because I wouldn't have met our day. And essentially that led to my first AD job. And without that first AD job at a private school in Virginia, I wouldn't be an AD at one of the biggest school districts in the United States of America. So everything has a reason. And I think we live in a time from an athletic standpoint where these kids today sort of struggle with some mental toughness and they struggle with adversity. And I think as an athletic culture, we sort of enable these kids too and give them too many options. We sort of give them access to moving real easy. And unfortunately, it's hurting them because when life punches you in the face, you got to be resilient, you got to bounce back, and you got to keep going. And sometimes the best route is through it, not around it or not leaving. So that's what Lander did for me. And I'm truly grateful that I got the opportunity to play with you, as well as Wayne Riley, who's from Gainesville. He was finishing up his career, but he was on campus. And he sort of helped us get acclimated to South Carolina. But I wouldn't trade anything for the world for my journey thus far.
Chuck, good seeing you, by the way, brother. You know, you mentioned the piece on going to JUCO route. Explain, because so many kids today, as you mentioned, their hand is held. All right, it doesn't matter. You know that we all go through the transition of you hold your kid's hand through school, basically through elementary, middle school, and then high school they start letting go. But in JUCO, I always tell people, you go to JUCO, it makes you a man. It makes you an adult quick. Could you just talk about the things that you were thinking of mentally when it came to that injury? Because, you know, I'm sure at that time, while you grew up in a rough neighborhood, the basketball component was always your piece. Talk about just how that might have disrupted your piece a little bit.
Oh, wow, that's a powerful question, man. That's you couldn't have said it best. Going to junior college makes you a man. It makes you grow up sooner than later. And he's got a shared experience with JUCO too, but JUCO was important because to this day, I tell my mother, and she even says it, she was like, at that moment, I knew you was going to be okay, and I raised you right, because the day she dropped me off at JUCO, so for those who don't know, junior college is not glorious. It's not the lights, camera, action. JUCO it's empty gym sometimes. It might be a gym in the middle of nowhere. It may be 5 fans in the gym until you start winning. And so we did start winning, so the city was out. But the experience from the amenity standpoint, it's like the projects. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like you might not have a meal plan. Like we didn't have meal plans. We stayed in a house off campus. And I visually want to bring this experience. A house off campus, it was like a 2-story house. It was 15 people in this crib. I feel like JUCO, sometimes the stuff they do ain't legal, but it was 15 hands in this crib. Upstairs, downstairs, it might have been 3 in a room. Downstairs, we had partitions separating the living room. So we had partitions separating your space. So you might be bunking. It's not like your room at your house. You bunking right next to somebody. You got a refrigerator, you got a partition, no meal plan, so we had to cook. So it sort of helped you figure it out on your own. We got, from a financial standpoint, our coach was creative. We got work study. Work study helped pay for some of your food. It helped pay for some of your rent. You had to go to campus and do some work on campus, and you'll get a couple dollars to help with your living. From a traveling standpoint, it's not like that D1 or D2 experience, because AP can vouch. We had a great experience at the Division II. We had great facilities. We traveled first class. JUCO, nothing like it. We had vans, 15 passenger. And I can recall We played up at Allegheny up in Maryland. If you know basketball, you know Allegheny was a powerhouse. Steve Francis played at Allegheny. It's up in the mountains. Once the game was over, there's no staying in hotels. You coming right back. That drive maybe 4, 5, 6 hours. It's 20 below in Northeast Maryland at the time. You grab a hot dog and some chips, hop on the van. You coming back to the school because you got class the next morning. So just the amenities and just that grind, it was something I embraced. I ain't gonna front. The first month was tough because like I said, even though I was on Atlanta Street, I never felt like I didn't have anything. And I will say this, I was in the projects, but my aunts and my mother, my grandmother did a great job of making sure I wanted for nothing. All right, and I didn't have to turn to the streets. I didn't have to do any of that. And the big bros in the hood like Mario and Tracy and everybody, you never had to resort to doing something you really weren't comfortable doing because they made sure you had to do that. So the amenities were not first class, but my mother dropped me off that first day. I'll never forget it. And she was like, yo, you want to stay? Because she walked in the house and she saw it. And she was like, yo, you want to stay? And I'm telling you, I looked at her, and this is what I was thinking. I was thinking I could stay here and figure it out, or I can go back to Gainesville and maybe try to get a job at Wrigley's or get a job at Cargill or just some factory situation and try to do that. So for me, it was easy because I know I couldn't do that. All my aunts went to college. They went to Stillman College, which is HBCU in Alabama. My uncle, rest in peace, my Uncle Gerald, he was a Morehouse man. So he graduated top of his class at Morehouse University in Atlanta. So that wasn't really an option. It ran through my mind, but it quickly left me. And I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna stay and hold it down. I'll figure it out. And the closest that we had and my brothers and my teammates, we was all in that shared experience. So they was coming from Jersey, New York, you a New Yorker. They was coming from some grimy situations too. So we collectively was like, this is a means to an end. When I come back to Gainesville as a grown man or as a graduate from Gainesville High School, I want to have a shared experience I can give to a kid back home like now. And that was part of the experience. And that's allowed me to share this moment with you because sometimes that path ain't glorious. Sometimes it's not paved with gold pavement. But guess what though? Your discipline determines your destination. And that's what me and my teammates did collectively. We said, yo, our discipline, our love for the game, this is going to be a 2-year bid. We looked at it like, jail, this is crazy. You look at JUCO like jail. We're like, this is going to be a 2-year bid, and we out of here. So we worked so hard and then doing a 2-year, and then Cecil is a 3-year bid. So we're going to get these 3 years in, we're going to build, and we all going to get a meal plan. That was the goal. You trying to get out here and get a meal plan. Be it D1, D2, you trying to get a meal plan. So that's what happened, man. That JUCO experience, it made a man out of me. And I wouldn't be in Florida. I wouldn't have went to Lambda if it wasn't for Cecil Community College. And I think JUCOs need to be sort of publicized more. I know you got the prep situation now, but JUCOs are a great experience. It helps you academically too. It helps you learn how to be a student. Because I was a great student. Academically, I never struggled, right? I was a horrible test taker. I had great GPA coming out of Gainesville High School, but my SAT wasn't great. It helped me learn how to study. So those 2 years were vital. And once I finished those, I went to Lambda, was successful academically. I got a master's from Virginia State University, 3.8. I left Lambda with a decent GPA. I changed majors at Lambda because I was doing PE for a second, and I was getting my butt whooped with kinesiology. I'm intelligent, but that's next level intelligence. I switched over to history because I love to read and I like words, and history was just easy for me. And then I just took off. But back to your point, yeah, JUCO, man, it ain't for the weak. So if you get through JUCO, any kid when I was recruiting at Johnson and Wells, I like JUCO guys because they know how to get it done, and they know how to get it done with nothing.
And I, first of all, I apologize. My condolences to you and your family in regards to your aunt, man. Talk about, after you got out of the collegiate ranks, you get an opportunity to come back to the state, and teach and coach in the state. Talk about that experience and how the experiences you had outside of Gainesville, as well as in other states, not only just your personal as an athlete, but also then as an administrator, as a former coach, in terms of the collegiate level. Now you're coming into a situation back home to be able to teach and coach in the state that you love. Just talk about what experience was that for you?
Man, I think that was probably the most rewarding experience. That's what the second half of my professional journey picked up with Coach Mays, because I moved back to Gainesville, and it's funny, I wrote it down. I came back to Gainesville in '07. So I finished up at Evangel. I was there from '05 to '07 as AD. I wanted to get in public school. I wanted to come back home. So I left Evangel. Truth be told, I never shared this with nobody. I left Evangel, an AD job, and came back to Gainesville just to figure it out. Like I resigned from my position. I wanted to get in public school. So I was home. I worked at Gainesville Middle School for a year. This is something I didn't really share. And during that experience from '07, '08, I coached 8th grade basketball. So on that team, coincidentally, was Deshaun Watson, Freddie Payne, Chase, quite a few of those stars that went on to have success on the football field. And during that experience, I came because I wanted to be back in Gainesville. I wanted to give back to my community. I had aspirations of being the head coach at Gainesville High School, all that good stuff. So I said, let me come do a year at the middle school to figure it out. Miss Simmons, my 8th grade Spanish teacher, was an administrator at the time, so she embraced me, welcomed me back home. And during that time period, I was at Gainesville Middle School for like 6 months. I ended up going to Athens and working in the Clark County School District as a parapro for a second. And I was actually got offered a coaching job at Cedar Shoals High School to be an assistant coach. And about the same time I got offered that job, Mario, a Cluster, I think Cluster Smith, everybody know Cluster around the way, hit my mom up, was like, Lip want to holler at Chuck. And then Mario hit me up.
I called you first.
Oh, yeah, Mario.
First.
Mario called me first. And then Cluster, some kind of way, got involved. And then and Mario, he was like, hey, Lip want to holler at you. So I got on the phone with Coach Lipscomb, and he had a position alongside Mario, because Mario was actually brought on board first. And then he reached out to let him know I had been home and I was looking to do something. So Lip and I connected because Coach Lipscomb, of course, played for Coach Davis and got the Gainesville ties. And he family too, because we all know each other. And so I went back to Athens and told him, hey, listen, I got a situation at Wheeler High School, which is Wheeler High School, and I can't see the shows, not going to be my move. No slight to see the shows. Coach Tom was doing a great job up there now, but it was Wheeler. So, and it was with Mario, my brother. So took that position, was at Wheeler for a year, had a phenomenal year. This is where I learned how to manage people, wow, leading to my administrative experience, how to manage people, how to manage egos. And I learned what big business basketball was, which helped me in my current position, which we'll get to. So had a great year. We won a state title. I learned under Coach Lipscomb and Coach Mays. And like I said, the greatest piece of that was how to manage people, because we had super talented kids, super egos. And to be able to lead those guys to the ring that was a job in itself. Minus X's and O's, because Mario, Coach Mays, and myself, we all know how to draw up a play. But I'm going to tell you, a credit to Coach Lipscomb, he was a great manager of people and a manager of talent. He did a good job, man, with just managing the ego. And my first lesson of leadership, he let us lead. People in leadership often don't want their assistants to lead or to grow. I learned from Lip, you got to let your assistants lead. So he let me and Mario be hands-on, from practice planning to everything. We was doing everything.
Hey, and, I got to stop you, because,
yeah,
you know, not only did he let us lead, but then he threw us in the fire too, with the parents and the whole 9 yards. Like, we had to fight our way out of them battles and everything. Remember the time we got jumped out the game by a female parent, and we was both looking at each other like, man, hold on, man, how do we get through under the bus? Where Lip at? And the brother it was like, look through the window, like, y'all gonna figure it out. And we was in there scrapping back and forth with the parent. Yeah. We came out good, but like you said, man, it was so many different dynamics to that situation. And like you said, you know, he let us do our thing, you know.
And it told me, like, Coach Mays was the head JV coach too. So I got to learn under Coach Mays some things as well. I've always been big on learning and less on titles. That's something I do with even my assistants. They're like a lot of principals, and I work with a whole bunch of people. People that's big on titles don't get a lot of stuff done a lot of times. I'm not big on titles. I'm big on effectiveness. So I got to learn, man, from those guys, and it was phenomenal. So after that success at Wheeler, after a year, I got Mario and I were both entertaining some job opportunities in Pebblebrook High School, which is it's a brand name now. And I tell people, I tell Coach Washington, who's a great coach, he done coach Colin Sexton, he done coach some stars at Pebblebrook. Pebblebrook is like a national brand now. I'm like, when you walk in that gym, though, no, I put the first banner up, homeboy. Because when I was at Pebblebrook, I had a squad too. I had a kid named Damian Wilson, about 6'7" lefty, probably one of the coldest kids I ever coached. He ended up going to Memphis and playing for a minute, then went to Kennesaw State. I had quite a few kids on my team that we ended up going to the state tournament my first year and did really well. I was at Pebblebrook for 2 years. I'm going to be honest with you, that second year, I don't know if I curse, I got my ass whooped. I'm going to be honest with you. My second year, so Damien ended up moving on to Oak Hill Academy, which is a national brand. I graduated quite a few kids. I lost a few kids. So my second year, we were subpar. But guess what? That also taught me humility. I try to find a lesson in everything. So I was at the top of the mountain with Mays and Lil. That following year, I was still riding high because I went to the state playoffs on my own. That was a personal goal because I wanted to see, can I do this as a head coach on my own? Like, you know, at the end of the day, that state title at Wheeler was lips, you know, and Mays and I was a piece of it. But, you know, that goes on his resume as the state title. So I wanted to see if I could do it on my own. So that's truly why I jumped after a year too. I could have sat there for another few years, but getting that opportunity to go do it on my own, I jumped at it, made it to the state tournament, got smacked by Lowndes, country boys in the county, you never forget it. I swear I think it was 10 people on the court. It was a violation that nobody damn called a foul. It was 10 people on that court that they don't know what they ran, but it was a crazy game. And then the following year, I stayed and we did decent. Never captured that success of that first year, but then I got in 2011, I was offered a job here in South Florida at Coconut Creek High School. And back to my theme, that was through another relationship. So the person who connected me with the school down here in Florida was Janae Butch. Janae was a former West Hall basketball player. She played at Adrian School. He knows Janae. Janae was teaching here in South Florida, told the school about me. He was like, yo, he'll former AD. I know y'all got a position. My man will be great. And I came down and it worked out. But being in Georgia, that was great, man. It was just getting an opportunity to come back home. That year at Gainesville Middle School was phenomenal because I built some more relationships. And the kids got to see too, like this guy used to sit in this same desk that I sat in. And, you know, he went off to school. He got 3 degrees now because at that point I had my associates, my bachelor's and a master's. He got his education. He's coaching us. So they got to see that real example because there's so much power in representation. We living at a time now where social justice is important. And we're living in a time now where representation matters. So to be a representative of what you can do off of 240 Atlanta Street meant more to me than anything because kids from 240 Atlanta Street didn't see that. I mean, they saw Peppers, they saw walking out the road. They didn't see that from my generation. Like I saw it from my mom, but from us, they didn't see a lot of that. So that's why I really wanted to come back to Gainesville in that regard. And then I was just happy to get down there with Coach Mays, and he put me on. That was another relationship. And then I jumped out here to South Florida, and I've been out here for the past 10 years, man.
Talk about the biggest challenges you had going down to Coconut Creek, because it's one thing to be in Georgia in your home state, be around family and friends. Basically your entire time here. In terms of relationships that you've already had based because of blood or previous experiences. But more importantly, then you go down to Coconut Creek, and yes, while the person Janae put you on, you're having to create. And it's not like you're going into a classroom to teach. You're in charge of an entire athletic program that yes, while you did it in college, we're still talking about high school. You know, we're talking about a new era. We're talking about people's different approach to philosophy, and especially when it comes to the high school, there's more politics involved than most political campaigns. Just talk about how you were able to navigate through that space, and what did you feel was the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge, but being able to navigate in this space, went back to that first moment I shared with you about being dropped off at Cecil and looking at my mother and saying if I'm gonna stay, if I'm gonna go. That moment at 17 years old, to accept that moment and to accept that responsibility at 17 and say, I'm gonna take this 17 years of game that my mother, my aunts, the projects, the OGs, the big brothers done put into me. And at 17, I'm gonna take them lessons and I'm gonna stand on my own in Northeast Maryland in this cold place with nobody I know, and I'm gonna figure it out. I knew then that moment would lead me to be on my own anywhere I went. So I think it's the old line Jay-Z said, you put me anywhere on God's green earth, I'm gonna trip my worth. I live by that line. And I knew once I got down to South Florida, it would be the same situation. So I got here, and the biggest obstacle was just time. And one of my mentors at Virginia State told me this: you can't speed up experience. So I couldn't speed up experience. I was an AD for 2 years at a private school, never seen the public side of it, but I had those 2 years. But time is all I needed to ingratiate myself in South Florida, because I came with a resume. I knew how to lead, but I just needed time to build relationships and put my philosophy in place. So the biggest obstacle was just time, and I couldn't just rush that. I just had to let it come by. And I got here from a teaching standpoint. It's unique in South Florida. So here as an AD for the past, well, prior to the past 4 years, I've been out of the classroom, but for the first 6 years, I was teaching and the AD. So this is unique because some states don't do this. I was teaching 7 classes and being the AD. I was teaching history classes. I taught history and I taught economics. So I taught 7 classes, 45-minute days, and I was the AD. And then after about 5 years of that, they took me out of the classroom. So again, it go back to my home training. I just make it work. I ingratiated myself with the neighborhood, with the school, through my work, because your work is your work, and that's what's gonna help people support you. So they was like, yo, this kid, young guy, came down here, don't know nobody, but I brought a philosophy of winning. I brought a philosophy of education and making sure our student athletes were student athletes. And then I brought a philosophy of relationship building. And I said, if you can do these things to my student athletes, we're gonna be successful. And to the administrative team I work with, I do the same thing. It's all about relationships. It's all about productivity. And I just showed them my work, and it's been great. Our programs are sort of mediocre. Like my first 2 years, we were terrible in football. To be honest with you, football is probably our biggest program because we had some professional athletes come under my influence in football. But with football was our biggest program. But with that, I had to tell them kids like, hey, listen, I know Coconut Creek is a transient school, and this might not be the thing right now, but if you just put the work in, you can be great. And that's what happened. And we had, in 1 year, 2016, probably one of very few times in Florida high school history, we had 3 All-Americans in the same building, the same graduating class. Malik Young, who started at University of Miami, he was the first person to wear the turnover chain. So when you see that kid, that's my kid, Malik Young. Went to Coconut Creek. Trayvon Mullen started Clemson, won 2 national titles. He got drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders. He's in the league now. It's his contract year. We talked the other day. He was like, Coach, I'm trying to be the best corner in the league this year so I can get to it. I'm like, don't focus on the bag, focus on the work. That's what got you to the point you're at right now. The bag will come. And then Benjamin Victor, who's with the Baltimore Ravens, he was an undrafted free agent with the Giants. He's with the Ravens now. So those 3 guys sort of helped springboard us into some more acclaim. And you know, like anything, once you start winning, people want to come. And that's in anything, in business, in sports. So we started winning, and we've been fortunate enough to have people support us. And just from my leadership style, I would say I'm a servant leader. I try to just serve. I try to not make it about me. I try to make it about the kids, making sure that I'm a representation or example of what you can become, because you probably gonna go professional more so in work than athletics, because like less than 1% make it to the show in football and basketball. And we got, unfortunately, this culture of athletics has created some disillusioned parents. I said, from administrator now, I'm talking. You got parents who sort of don't understand it's bigger than just that ball, and there's so many people competing for that same ball. You better make sure you're balanced, because if your only out is that ball, you're gonna be having mental illness. You're gonna be down. You're gonna be stressed out. So don't make that your thing. Try to look at, and when I had this conversation with my parents, I tell them, try to look at this experience as a holistic experience. Your kid will have an opportunity to go play college ball. However, your kid needs to be successful in the classroom and in the hallways, because that's part of what they want to see. And if ball don't work out, they can still gonna be a professional in the workforce and be a high school coach like Coach Mays doing a great job, and be an entrepreneur like AP who's doing a great job, and be a journalist like yourself, Rob, who's doing a great job. All of us have found success outside of professional sports, and it's more of us than it is Trayvon Mullins. And there's no shame in that, and it's great, and that's just the odds. So that's what I've tried to sort of create here in South Florida, and it's been well. The community's been supporting me in what I do, in my leadership, and I can't complain, man. I'm good.
So you speak on being a athlete that has a holistic mindset. You speak on education. You speak on entrepreneurship. One thing that I always admired about you was first the education piece that I know came from your family. Like if anybody in the Gainesville knew your family, they understood. Like you said, what you spoke about with your aunts. I had the pleasure to work with your Uncle Gerald. And man, dude was at the Boys and Girls Club, like he was a brilliant dude. Like I don't care what you say, like it wasn't nothing that he really couldn't touch on. You know what I'm saying? And I learned so much from him just in that experience at the Boys and Girls Club. But then when we got a chance to work together, before you even, I made a Wheeler call. I remember me and you was talking at one time, and this was when you took the private school job at the as an AD. And I thought to myself, like, dang man, this boy bold. You know what I'm saying? He struck out and went all the way to another state, because we always had shared and talked about coming home and being the head coach at home and this, that, and the third. But the thing that I look at is everything that you've been able to do in a nutshell, from the standpoint of the importance of education and where it took you. And now I want you to talk about your nonprofit situation, man. We do a lot of talking about life outside of whatever sport that kids are in, which I think is very, very important. Because like you said, you're gonna spend more time as a professional from the standpoint of a job than you will as a pro. Even the average pro career is sometimes 3 to 4 years. But after that, most of them guys go back to work, you know what I'm saying, doing something. But talk about your nonprofit, man, and the inspiration behind it.
So as you can see, like even my shirt here, so I keep it, man. I tell people you got to be your biggest brand. You got to be your biggest supporter and your biggest fan. So my organization, the Sunshine State Basketball Explosion, and this is my logo, was birthed out of a conversation truly with my boy AP. And I like to say this on record too. I said this to him privately. And then just my student athletes, Trey, Ben, and Malik. So AP and I had a conversation. He may not remember this. It was at PF Chang at Marla, Georgia. Our families from broke bread. We try to do that often. We got to do a better job of that. But our families broke bread. And he was talking to me about, basketball, the basketball space outside of just school and what he was doing. And just conversation about training and what he's doing and so on and so forth. He was like, bro, you need to consider, something basketball related like that. And I know my response to him at the time was, well, I definitely can't do training just because I'm an AD. You know, like I got to do this. It's hard for me to do the training piece. But I said, you know, that was pretty much the gist of it. But I think what I took from that conversation was he just sparked the mind, and the mind just started working. And I'm like, yo, okay. So 3 years later, because that was like years before I actually put it in place. So in 2018, the concept came about. So the Sunshine State Exposure and Legacy Athletics and Leadership Academy. So the legacy piece is essentially I merged my passion for basketball and I merged my passion for economics together. And when student athletes come to my event, they do a symposium on financial literacy that I facilitate, as well as my financial planners. And then they play, of course, an exposure high level basketball event. And what happened was my student athletes, Trey, Malik, and Ben, we would just have informal conversations because they were like, you know, I think I potentially can go pro coach. This information that we're talking about in class could be useful, from 401ks to taxes to budgets. I just sort of have the ability to break it down into layman's terms because I think, unfortunately, economics presented to us, to minorities, sometimes can be presented in a macro way. And when you present it in macro way and in terms that we're not really familiar with, we go the other way. So I've been able to sort of flip it and present it to the students in a very layman's terms way, right? And I just related to something like gas. I'm gonna give you a prime example. Like when you go to the gas pump, this is something I use often in my seminars. You got 3 gas. You got unleaded, you got premium, then you got like the super premium. And I tell the students, look at your financial portfolio as gas. You need to get you 3 types of investments. A mutual fund could be the unleaded, a bond could be the premium, and a single stock could be the super premium. But I have the ability to break it down, so they're looking at it like, oh, that's it. And we chop it up. So I was doing this informally in class, and I decided to form an organization so that I can incorporate that with the basketball piece, because that's been part of my journey the whole time. And we see this story all the time about athletes who make it to the stage, get a big contract, and then they're gonna blow their money on depreciating assets or things that don't make their money appreciate but depreciate. So Trayvon, Ben, and Malik was like, hey, coach, this has been golden. So you need to take this outside of the school walls. So I formed the organization. We're moving into year 3 of the event coming this December. Due to COVID, we had to suspend some of the out-of-state teams last year, but this year, due to early registration, got over 10, 11 Georgia schools coming down again. Look like it's about 24 teams in this year's event. And it's just my passion of infusing financial literacy with athletics, and as well as just my story, because I think, you know, you can learn just a lot about my story, about resilience, making something from nothing, taking a chance on yourself, and being a representation of what young Black men could do. Because the narrative out here about us is not great sometimes. And the pictures that we get on the news, either we getting pictures of us not breathing, or we getting pictures of us doing things that aren't productive. And I'm just trying to be a conduit to change the narrative and be a great father like Mario and like AP, and just be a great man like Alfonso, each of you, and just trying to be a representation of what you can do if you stay focused on a task and you got some great relationships, because you can't do it by yourself. And I firmly believe, man, relationships are the greatest currency. I take them over money anytime. I need the ability to be able to come to Georgia and say, hey, Mario, I need somewhere to lay my head for a night. And he got me. I need a meal right quick, AP. I need a sandwich, me and the family coming through. He got me. Fonzo, man, I need you to pick me up from the airport of New York, which true story. That's what happened. I remember that. I remember everything. My family, my wife is from Massachusetts. I called my man Fonzo, hey, I need a ride from the airport. My man pulled up, picked me up at JFK, and that was love. When it got done, and it was good. So what I'm saying is relationships plus substance is a winning concoction.
Chuck, that's one thing I like about your game, man. Like the piece that you add to it, especially like investing your money, because that's something Rob can speak on this, man. like I was texting Rob 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week, and I was like, yo, Rob, yo, you need to start investing in the stock market. And then he texts me back, how you do it? I like, man, you can actually start investing on your cash app, you know, put a couple of dollars in. And during this whole pandemic, because you know me, you know, like I'm a big time guy in the stock market. You know what type of investments I do. So I got Sean William on the radar. You know Sean.
Yeah.
Sean doing good in his investments. I got a couple more guys because during this pandemic, people was losing money and the stock market was going down. So it was at an all-time low and people were dumping money in. Then it popped back up. Now it's at an all-time high. So people gained like 80, 90, 100% on their money last year.
Right.
So that's the one piece that, especially in our community, that we don't know about the stock market. If you ask anybody in Gainesville, do they invest in the stock market? I can guarantee you it's a very small percent of minorities that do that, man. So that's something that, you know, I'm like, I love what you're talking about right now because people need to start hearing that piece, man. So, man, I appreciate you bringing that up. And that's something I'm looking to add to the game, man, because that is a very important piece.
Oh, absolutely, man. Just, you know, fiscal responsibility, unfortunately, is not discussed in our communities enough. You know, from life insurance to just everything. We just like taboo. And I think for us to progress, you know, we got the avenues. We just have to branch out. We got to dive deeper. And I think that's partially due to my education background. Like I said, I just like reading, man. And I taught myself, like I pretty much like taught myself like through some readings, and then I was in just conversations and made the right relationships with people in the financial sector and just other people in leadership, and it just sort of like it just grew. But I planted the seed by putting the work in and just reading and doing some stuff on my own. In addition to the basketball, because like you can be, it could be equal. Like you can be equally vested in both. And because basketball is forever part of my journey, and I appreciate you for sort of just, you know, from that land experience. And it's funny, even you remember the injuries. I didn't think you remembered that piece, but you know, it was, you can be equally invested in a lot of things. And that's what I'm just trying to show balance to the people who are watching and the kids, and just humble and thankful for everything thus far. It's been a journey, but I'm thankful for it all. I wouldn't trade anything for it. It's been great.
So,
Hey,
so
Chuck,
Chuck,
go ahead, AP. My bad.
so Chuck, what's your next goal, man? What's your 5-10 year goals? If you set goals like that, what you trying to get accomplished?
Man, so my 5 year is just to be the Sunshine State Explosion to be in year 5. That's the first thing, because you know getting to 3 is a phenomenal thing. So getting to 3 is gonna be great. Because even my like professional career, I tell people like being an AD. Once I got to year 3, after that it was been on autopilot. Because it takes you about 3 years to figure out things, get the kinks down, work the kinks out. So once you get to year 3, pretty much in your professional career, in your marriage, if you're married, like 3 is a marker for most things. So I try to get beyond year 3 and just keep going. So I want to, again, just keep growing my event, keep being of some service to anybody who wants my service, and just honestly being a father, being a great husband and father. Because, you know, I got 2 beautiful daughters. I got one that's turning 5 next week. And then I got a 3-month-old who was born January 14th. So just trying to be here for them. Because, again, like I said, if you go back to the beginning of my story, I was single parent home. So this experience is a learned experience through going through it. Because I know my dad. I'll respect my side of that family. I want to be clear because my last name is Hendrix. And I know my aunts, and they were heavily involved in my life on that side as well. My father was a 20-year Army veteran. He worked 20 years. He was worked in the Army. So he did a 20-year great career. So if anything, even though he wasn't in my home every day, and that when I didn't grow up like that, from afar, I always can respect any man who go work on a job for 20 years and do it. And I salute my pops for that. We have a great relationship now as a man, but I just want to try to be a better person every day and keep growing my event, and, you know, still be the AD at Coconut Creek High School or anywhere, and just growing in leadership so I can bring more back to my student athletes and the people who work with me, and just try to leave the people I meet and the places I go better than when I first got there. So we started our relationship. I hope it grows and gets better. And people at work, I'm the same way. Coconut Creek has gotten better in the past 10 years since I've been there. Because like I said, they went from nothing to we like, you know, we got, so you say Coconut Creek High School in South Florida is relevant. You said anywhere, football is relevant. I mean, we got people on the show. So I know I'm doing something right, and I just want to continue to do that, remain humble in doing so. Because all of this can be gone in a minute. I'm learning that about life. I think that's the sucky part about getting old. I'm not getting too morbid, but getting older. So I'm 40 now, and I lost my aunt today. And y'all know that's part of my story. That's why I told Maura I wanted to do this. It's therapeutic because it's the best way I can honor her. So she knows that I'm still here. I'm gonna still keep going. Um, and it's because of her, my Aunt Gwen, my Aunt Janelda, my Aunt Georgette, and my mom, of course. Those 5 women have impacted me more than anybody. And then my Uncle Gerald, rest in peace, because he was just as vital too, as a Morehouse man and setting a standard of excellence when it comes to academics, and just positive reinforcement. Um, like I said, I had every Nintendo game in the hood. So people used to come to my house and play Nintendo games because when I got an A or something at school, my Uncle Gerald blessed me with a Nintendo game. So I had a ton of Nintendo games. So I just try to get that love back out to the kids who I interact with too, man. I just try to be that guy. Some of them call me now because I need 20 because I need whatever, man. If I can help you, I'm going to help you just because somebody did it for me. Coach Amy, in that article they wrote, Gainesville Times did a phenomenal job too, sort of showing who I am as a person. And I'm just trying to be that. I'm trying to be that Coach Amy for that 17-year-old kid like he was for me. Salute to Coach Amy too.
Salute Coach Amy. Yes, sir.
Who's about to go get his graduate degree at Arkansas State.
Oh, that's love.
Like in educational curriculum, stuff like that. So he's gonna go start online.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you, Chuck, you know what I mean, and especially in the community, in the transient community like Coconut Grove is, how have you been able to, it's one thing to talk to your students in the classroom about financial literacy and the things that you're doing with, Sunshine, the Legacy Basketball Tournament and everything, and that's fantastic because I love the piece of they have to attend your financial literacy of classroom before they even step out onto the court and have the opportunity to play. But how are you able to talk to the parents in the community, not solely just the kids who have exceptional opportunities to be pros potentially, but those who just in general, their parents need that understanding that, okay, instead of buying a pair of J's, invest some of that money possibly in stocks, extra insurance, deposited in a compound interest account, whatever any of these things are, but you're teaching it in the classroom, and then how do you translate it into the home?
Well, like anything, it's sort of like word of mouth, man. Word of mouth is like the biggest thing. It's like social media. Word of mouth, social media, is like a game changer. So what happens is, like my students, again, I just don't talk to just the athletes. The athletes attend my event, of course, they're playing basketball, but this conversation initiated just in my classes. So my students will go back and tell their parents, like, yo, we learning about a zero-based budget in Coach Hendrix' class. We learning about, life insurance. We learning about 401ks versus 403bs. Which one can you actually get? One for a nonprofit, one for a profit. We learning this in class. So then most parents, they inquire. Even though in high school, and this is a misconception, a lot of times in high school you think parents aren't as involved. They aren't as involved in stuff that don't concern them. But when your kid come home and tell you, hey, yo, we doing a budget, I need to put this money up, because I started like a savings club. So for the past couple of years, I've had kids who might save a couple $1,000s over the course of an academic year, because some of them work. So like the ones that work, I tell them, you got to save 10% of what you make. So they'll be saving 10%. So when they go home and their parents be like, they'll be like, coach, I got paid, I got paid 200 today, right? This week they work at McDonald's, and then they tell their parents, yo, because some of their parents, this is crazy too. This is something that we didn't have to deal with as we were growing up. A lot of these kids today are helping out with bills at the crib. Like, well, in my area, because I got a really high Caribbean area in my school, my demographic's Caribbean. So it ain't like I got Jamaicans, Haitians, like I got these kind of cats down here, Puerto Ricans. It's a diverse melting. It's like New York, it's really diverse. So the mindset in their culture is you got to go to work. Like school ain't advocated like that to a degree. Like if they got to choose between, you need to go to school and you got a job right now to help keep these lights on, they tell their kids, hey, go to work. So now when these kids go home and they saying, well, look, Mom, I can't give you my whole 200. I'm gonna give you 180. Well, why? I got to keep 10% for myself because after a year, coach gonna hook me up with his financial planner, and we're gonna put that into a stock, and it's gonna grow. And after 8 to 10 years with compound interest, I can stop at a certain point, and I'm gonna be rich forever. So then their parents like, oh, what? So then the parents would call me or email me, hey, coach, heard about what you're doing. I just need some of that advice because I ain't never heard that before, like never. And I'm like, sure, let me talk to you. And then I'm so transparent because listen, I don't got no accounting degree, but I got a degree in success and failure. And I got a degree from being in the projects. Like I got life degrees. So I got a degree from being that guy who went to the student loan office and got student loans when I had 4 scholarships everywhere I've been. Like I had a 4 scholarship at Cecil. I had a 4 scholarship at Lander. But I still went to the student loan, the loan office was like, yo, let me get max loan amounts.
And I told you not to.
And he told me not to. Now, my boy AP has always been sort of frugal. I'm going to just put that on. My boy always been like that. But I'll go in there and let me max out. So.
Yo, Chuck, I don't mean to cut you off. I got to tell the guys this story.
Set up.
We on a full scholarship, right? So I don't know how we got word of it, but I remember we all went up to the financial aid office, and all of us was up there, and I think we could get $5,000 to $10,000. Yeah. And I think Chuck, you might have got 10 or 5. I not forgot.
Yeah, I got something like that. Yeah.
So everybody got it. Well, it was like Chuck, Ade, and somebody else.
Yeah, it's like real.
Me, I'm thinking like, man, this is not free money, bro. You're gonna have to pay this money back. So all these guys took the money. Then they come down to me. They were like, yo, you gonna take it? No, because I'm not paying y'all back. I don't want to pay y'all back. And I told Chuck, do not take this money. They still took it. And guess what they did with the money, Rob? They bought some Jordans.
Hey, man. Hey, AP, we went to Greenwood Mall and balled out, boy.
Hey, I'm just watching these guys buy all this stuff in the mall. I'm like, boy, y'all gonna pay all this stuff back plus interest.
Hey, that's a true story. So, like I said, it's real experiences. But I'm gonna tell you this caveat though, AP. I did have a little bit of knowledge because I knew like with education. So, and Rob may be familiar with it. Like you got teacher forgiveness loans. So, like I knew then I was gonna get an education. So I'm like, yeah, I ain't going to pay this back. I'm going to work for y'all for about 20, 30. I'm going to do a 30-year career in the school system. So y'all gonna cut that off anyway. But the mother reckless cats, they didn't have that caveat in their back pocket. But I would say my boy AP tried to put the stop sign on, but I'm like, nah, hey, I'm gonna go be in education anyway. I'm good. Give me that check. so yeah, we did that early, man. But I think I'm gonna be honest with you though. But part of that naiveness though, as I grew older, it wasn't because, and I don't have any regrets because I tell people you can't regret what you don't know. And I didn't know about financial planning. I didn't know about financial literacy. I didn't know about stocks, bonds. I didn't know about the real dynamics of it. And I mean, I knew about credit because like, you learn about some of this stuff, not explicitly. Like I learned, because I grew up in college educated people. So my mom then talked about budgeting briefly and stuff like, but it was never like an explicit conversation. Like I sit down with the kids who come to my event and be like, we're going to devote 45, 50, 60 minutes. And I'm going to tell you some terms. When you leave here, you can walk out of here and you got a base. And prime example, when Trayvon got drafted, I'm sitting next to him at his draft party, and John Gruden called him, you got drafted. And even just like the other day, me and Trey had a conversation, hey coach, we got to work on the budget, this, that, and the third. But that was for those kind of moments. Because now at 17, 18, we're 19 whenever he got drafted. You thinking about it then versus we weren't thinking like that when we was coming up because you weren't exposed to it. And that's the key that I've seen my colleagues, for a better way of saying it, I've seen them have access, or the others have access to certain things because they get that information at 16, 17, and we don't get it because we like what the locks, we learning off experience. You can get that acronym, Alfonso. It's like the locks, we learning off experience. So when we can not learn off experience so much as a culture, we'll have some more when it comes to things of that nature. But we learn off experience versus they don't learn off experience. They when they had them kids, they already set, the table already made for them, the table set. You get what I'm saying? The fork, spoons, everything already laid versus us, we got to learn off experience. So I'm just trying to be that conduit where we can sort of change the narrative a little bit. And listen, I know all the kids who come to the event, all of them not going to leave it and remember anything or apply it. But my grandma used to tell me all the time, is if you save one, you done your job. And over my course of 10 years at Coconut Creek and then 5 overall, so 15 in education, I done managed to get one every year. And I'm being, I'm being less than generous. It's been way more than one. But I've reached quite a few. And I know my legacy essentially is going to be okay because those kids got it. And now they're setting themselves up for not only professional success, athletic success, and then generational wealth because they just apply them things at an early age and compound interest take place. It's going to be good. So I gave them all of me. And that's my goal. Just make sure they get all of me, from the basketball piece to just the gems I can give them like that, and just, everything, relationship building. That's what I tend to do.
Excellent. I mean, you're touching on a lot of things, and I know you mentioned something in terms of your 5-10 year goal, and obviously life after education and the growth of your event. Have you ever thought about scaling it? Again, where it's something that you can do moving forward, where once you're done teaching or while you're teaching and building it up, scaling it where you are talking to more, either a gym full of kids, trying to put this program together, or even a convention hall, or a hotel ballroom, to be able to talk to kids as well as adults about this. Have you ever thought about it like that?
I have, man, and I've been fortunate. Like I said, the city of Coconut Creek has really been supportive, from the mayor to city officials, and they actually approached me about my principal. Have like, yo, this is something you need to consider scaling and moving. I even got some calls recently from some guys up in North Carolina about bringing the concept up that way, and I'm all for it, and I'm planning for it, a little bit at a time. And part of scaling it, like comes with more money. Like you need more money to scale. Like it's just, more money. So like my goal personally, every year I try to get 5 new sponsors. So I'm like 1 sponsor away from my goal for this year. So as it continues to grow, and again, I continue to get support and the revenue streams continue to grow, then yeah, ultimately that's what I want to do, because I think the message is so powerful. I think people can really connect with my story. That's what I'm noticing too. They just connect with the story. From my upbringing to what I'm doing now. So I absolutely want to scale it. And that's the goal over the next 5-10 years. But it's a marathon, and sort of taking off Nipsey's philosophy. It ain't a sprint. So I just sort of base hit it. That's what I tell the kids. Look at the financial journey like baseball. It's more base hits than on won games and home runs. So anything I do personally, I just try to base hit it. I've never been a guy, and AP can talk about, even like I've never been a home run guy. Like I'm a base hit you to death. So you might get there a little sooner, but I'm gonna have more RBIs. And on the way now, I'm gonna swing for the fences. And I tell the kids, like, I swung for the fences and I came up with a Sunshine State explosion, but I didn't stop being an AD. You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna base hit you to death, and I'm gonna get a home run or two here and there as well. And that's how I am when it comes to scaling it. I'm working on that. It's in my 10-year plan, oddly enough, and I think I got the support to do it too, because it's really been some great support when it comes to that vision and how we move it forward. But I want to make sure I'm all about quality over quantity as well. So just finding that balance of just making sure I can replicate what I'm doing now with the quality, because the worst thing you can do is scale and the quality is bad. You get what I'm saying? Like, you know, I learned those from observations of the streets too. Like, you know, sometimes once the quality don't get as bad, you know, you don't have no more customers. You get what I'm saying? So you want to do things the right way.
Yo, Chuck, I'm gonna leave you with this, man. I just sent us all something in the group text. I want you to check out the Wall Street Trapper, man.
Okay.
Just check him out. He was on the Breakfast Club about 2 weeks ago, man.
Okay.
Hey, he's a powerful dude, man. I just want you, you know, it's about an hour interview. Just really listen to what he's saying, man. Dude went to prison for like 10 years. And you got to, like, when he was in prison, you just listen to it, man. We'll chop it up later.
Chop it up like that. I'll definitely watch it, bro, for sure. For sure.
But, man, I appreciate you jumping on tonight, man. I know you're busy with the newborn. I can just imagine, boy, you starting back over, boy. Ooh,
yeah, man.
I salute you.
Hey, I'm telling you, boys, it's a task. I'm not at work now. I took leave because, like I said, I've been off since March 29th. So I go back to the building on May 10th. Because, like I said,
right before the end of school, huh?
Right before the end of school, conveniently, right? So I go back right before the end to shut the books down. But I just been hanging out with my little girl building, you know, trying to get us together.
Oof. Yeah, I salute you.
Appreciate it, man. Mario, it's good to see you. AP, it's good to see you too. Like I told Big Bro Rio, man, this better not be the last time I see you, King. Like I need to see you more often. FaceTime, text, whatever, brother. We got too much history. We got too much history. To make it, we need to make it more frequent. Like I said, I'm learning about this life thing. It's fleeting. And, you know, we can hang up today. I might not be here tomorrow. So I'm going to just tell you this on record. I love you. I love all y'all boys. We all got personal relationships. I said, Alfonso, I'll never forget when you picked me up from the airport in New York. We hadn't seen each other for a few years, but it was one call away. I'm stuck at the airport. My man pulled up in that black little SUV you had. You picked me and the wife up. I appreciate that. Mario, I always been a resource, man. Like I said, I wouldn't be a wheeler if it weren't for Mario Mays. So that was love, and we always stayed in contact. He's always been for advice. When I want to go, you know, I want to go beat up the room, he'll talk me off the cliff. You know what I mean? So.
Well, we taught each other off the cliff, man. You know how that go. But I appreciate you, man. I'm proud of you, homie. You know what I'm saying? You make it look easy, man, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. You keep doing it, man. And blessings to you and your family. And you know we praying for you. And you know when you touch town, just holler at us, bro.
Absolutely, man. I said I'll be there. Hey, coming home on these conditions, man. But I'll be home this week. We're making the final arrangements. They'll let me know. They'll let me know soon. But and of course I'll be back in the summer for an extended period of time under some more lighter circumstances. But definitely want to see all y'all boys when I come home. Salute to Q, man, for this 360 podcast and what you're doing on that media platform. Y'all have always been ahead of the curve when it comes to that too. And I just thank you for allowing me to share my story, man, with whomever watching. Hope I've been an inspiration to anybody.
Hey, I got to get you with, when I get down there, connect you with my peoples who are down there, especially at the Porsche dealership. My guy runs the spot, so I might need to get you a sponsor.
Love, man. I'm here. I'm all, hey, listen, I always take free money.
Hey, listen, I know it. We all would.
Yeah, man.